What's going on, everybody? Nicholas Moreano here. Another episode of the Nicholas Moreano Show. I'm inside the Indiana Convention Center. I'm somewhere on the second floor. I mean, this place, every year I come here, I guess I'm amazed by how big this place really is, because there's the NFL Combine going on, and then there's random conventions, safety conventions, and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm just on the second floor somewhere. Found a quiet space somewhere where there's actually some natural lighting. Over to my right, I can see actual windows, and you kind of forget about the outside world when you're inside this convention center all day. But I want to do a quicker episode to just kind of share, just some takeaways from today and what Ryan Poles said in his 15-minute press conference, and then Ben Johnson as well when he spoke to the media a couple hours later than Ryan Poles. But just some of the takeaways, and I have my laptop on my lap. You can see it right here. Got the Iowa logo or sticker there. But just want to recap some of the notes I've taken throughout both those press conferences, share it with you, and then get on out of here and probably get something to eat for the first time. Actually, not. That's a lie. They have some food in the media workroom. They're also, for whatever reason, I guess NFL Network's just playing the Bears-Commanders game. So if you want to look away from your laptop when you're not typing, bam, there's not the Hail Mary yet. I believe they're in the second quarter from what I saw. So still got a little ways to wait, but it's happening. We all know how that ends. But that's playing in the media workroom, so I got away from there. So let's start with, before I keep on rambling, let's start with Ryan Poles and what he had to say. I think one of the quotes that's kind of circulating is on the coaching staff. Ryan Poles said, "These guys are juiced up. Totally different feel these days from the group that is in here or is in there." So I think it's very natural for there to be a lot of excitement, optimism at this point in February. You're going into the Combine and trying to learn the staff. And, I think one of the things that Ryan Poles reiterated a couple of times just in his press conference was that, they want to have a clear vision. And to have that is just basically learning what Ben Johnson wants, what the staff wants, so that when you have this clear vision, then you can go on to do bigger and better things. Or, how to approach free agency. You got to have a clear vision. When you do that, that'll allow you to go into free agency with everybody in a single focus. Everyone knows what they're thinking, and that will allow the team to make the most responsible decisions, but also potentially big ones. And that was also another takeaway I had, that it didn't sound like to me that Ryan Poles was shying away from potentially going out and getting some bigger free agent targets. If they're on their checklist, on their boxes that they need to check off, and it makes sense financially, and of course if it's probably a need as well, it sounds like Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, that's kind of what the direction of this team is going to go for this time around in free agency. That hasn't been usually the case for Ryan Poles, but it sounds like if the fit is right, they're not going to shy away from potentially going after some of those bigger free agents. And Ryan was asked today about Trey Smith, and he said he didn't really say much about him because he wouldn't go into anybody that wasn't on the team. But he was, how did he put it? I think he was satisfied with the evaluation of how they went into finding Trey Smith. And you see the player that he is today and what he's potentially going to make as a free agent if he hits the open market. He also, added some context on the releasings of Gerald Everett and DeMarcus Walker, and he said anytime you kind of have gray in terms of fit with the scheme change and their contract situation, he said he wanted to give them an opportunity to have their representatives be at the Combine to, kind of get just a better scope of what kind of attention they're going to get in free agency. But I think it's key that if there's gray area with the fit and scheme, maybe you look at Gerald Everett, you look at DeMarcus Walker, those guys clearly were in that gray area, and their contracts also allowed the Bears to be now fourth most in the NFL in cap space when they released them. So when you have those two combination of things, it makes sense why the Bears and Gerald Everett, DeMarcus Walker are no longer together. I mentioned the clear vision, and one of the questions that Ryan Poles was asked, how to get Ben's vision into Ryan's head, how do you navigate that? And he said it takes individual conversations, getting the front office together, discussion with position by position. And I think that goes back to that clear vision I was talking about. That's what I think this process is all about, especially at this point. Like Ben Johnson hasn't been here for very long, so it's very important that Ryan Poles, now Ian Cunningham, Ben Johnson can all just be on the same page. So they know what free agents they're going to be going after, which ones they're not going to be going after. Same goes for the prospects that they're looking at. What fits, and I'll get into Ben Johnson, what he said about the type of players they're looking for, but it all starts with just being on the same page and, again, having that clear vision. And then let's go to Ben Johnson's press conference, because I'm looking at my notes, and that's where they end on Ryan Poles. There wasn't really too much. I think, again, the big takeaway for me is that the Bears are not going to be scared to be aggressive in free agency. We'll see how aggressive and what types of moves they ultimately make, but it seems like that's going to be how they will approach it this time around. Let's see. With Ben Johnson. Herb Howard, who I drove up with to Indianapolis this morning, asked him the first question in the media scrum down where all the podiums are at, where all the coaches, GMs usually speak. And he said you only get one opportunity, and this is Herb's question, to set the precedent of how demanding you're going to be with player acquisition in the draft of free agency. And here's Ben's response to that. He said he sat down with the entire personnel department, going, again, position by position, to find their ideal athletes and what they look like. And he talking about the attributes, the height, weight, speed. And this I think was a key part in his answer. If it's a good football player, we're going to make it work. And to me, how I'm interpreting that, if maybe a particular player has maybe some character issues or something that doesn't quite align with maybe the exact culture that the Bears are looking for, again, if he's a good football player, we're going to make it work. And that goes back to the coaches that Ben Johnson now has in place as his first year here in Chicago is starting to really develop with, everything coming up right now. So I did appreciate that. And, sometimes you may have to go off script a little bit if it means you're going to get a good football player into the building. Also, Ben Johnson, and this should come to no surprise to anybody, big into the analytics, being a former, football kind of nerd himself, not in terms of the X and O's, but just like the analytic parts. He said he has a healthy respect for the analytic community, likes to use analytics, as a tool to make some decisions, not just in-game adjustments, but how to build their roster. So that doesn't surprise me at all, knowing, Ben Johnson and the type of background that he has and how much of an influence probably analytics had when his time in Detroit. You see all the fourth down conversions, things like that. Like, that's going to be a big part of it, and I think that's going to play a role here in Chicago. And speaking of those in-game adjustments that Ben Johnson mentioned, when speaking of the analytics, that also means the clock management. He was asked, Johnson said the team does have a plan in place when it comes to, late game situations, how to approach that. We all know what happened on Thanksgiving in Detroit and how that ended for Matt Eberflus, which ultimately ended up getting him fired. But there is a plan in place, and Harry Freed, who is actually the director of research and analysis with the Bears, has a relationship with Ben Johnson going back to Miami. And they've started a process called the Breakfast Club. So every 30 minutes, they meet every day, and they're kind of just going through different scenarios, situations of how to approach things. And Johnson told Freed to teach him like he is a rookie QB, and they're going through that program right now. Let's see. Let me go to this before I finally get to a break here, as I'm losing, my train of thought here. Another person that Johnson spoke really highly about, Declan Doyle, the Chicago Bears offensive coordinator. So Johnson called John Morton, who took the OC job in Detroit. And Morton worked with Doyle for the last couple of years. And Johnson said, how's Declan doing? Is he ready to be a coordinator? Johnson said, and then Morton said, Ben, listen, he's another Ben Johnson. And then this is what Ben said, which I think that's a good thing. I'm banking on that, a good thing. Listen, I think he and I are a match made in heaven. I feel like every single person I've talked to that's overlapped with Declan Doyle, who's had some working relationship, has worked with him at Iowa, there's nothing bad that can be said about the guy. And of course, you're talking to people that know him, friends, whatever, they're going to say good things, but the praise just keeps getting raised. That's a phrase there. Whoa, bars. No, just kidding. For Declan Doyle right now. So I just think that we're going to see how much of a benefit that is in the offensive room when they're going over film, things like that. But it just seems like everybody I've talked to now, hearing it from Ben Johnson's mouth, like Declan Doyle is going to be a huge asset to this team. And speaking of the coaching staff too, I know I said I was going to take a break, but really quickly on the coaching staff, like Ben Johnson put together this staff of not just his friends, but of coaches that he didn't work with previously, because he wanted to go outside of his circle, he said, on purpose, because I wanted to collect a different mix of experience, of energy, ideas, and we're going to make it come together. It's going to be the Chicago Bears moving forward. He highlighted Eric Bieniemy. He's got a lot of experience in the gun run game and what they did in Kansas City, obviously. And Declan has a lot of success from the Sean Payton tree, and Press Taylor has a lot of success from Chip Kelly all the way. So different library of different offensive philosophies, ideas, and how to approach things. And for Ben Johnson, he wanted that to be a part of his coaching staff, and that's why he assembled the staff in the way they did. And he did bring some guys that he did overlap with, Antoine Randall being one of them, but he wanted to go outside of his comfort zone, get these different coaches so that he can make the unit that he has today. All right, before I get to the rest of the takeaways here, look, wouldn't be here without Windy City Sports Cards. Look, they specialize in buying and selling all things related to Chicago sports, whether you're a diehard fan of the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, or Blackhawks. They've got you covered with an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles in addition to their Chicago-focused items. Look, they also offer a vast collection of sports trading cards and memorabilia from your favorite teams and players. Visit online their store to find exactly what you're looking for to complete your collection or discover a new favorite. Windy City Sport Cards is the best. You got to check them out. Again, that memorabilia, man, like we're in the combine. It's, there's a lot of excitement around Bears football again right now, and free agency will get here. Check out Windy City Sport Cards. You get your memorabilia, trading cards as well. And also, come draft time, you know where you're going to want to go to get your best trading cards. Then the last things I want to hit on, and it would be bad if I didn't mention this. It shouldn't be last because it's super important for the Bears this offseason, is the O-line. So Ben wants a physical group. That should come to no surprise, given what you saw, what he had in Detroit and how they played. But he wants players to finish in a dominant position, and he also, kind of football talky, was saying that he wanted this for the entire team, not just the O-line. When asked specifically about the O-line, he kind of broadened his answer, but wants players to finish in a dominant position. Said, also, it's not just about 5 offensive linemen. You need to really have depth at that position because most likely players are going to play significant minutes at some point during the season because injuries are bound to happen. So it's not just about the best 5. He said almost like the 6, 7, 8, or 9 guys in the O-line that they want to make sure they have right so that when their number is called upon, they can execute. And then he was asked, is it realistic to flip the O-line in one season? And Ben Johnson believes so. He cited what Carolina did in acquiring some of the guards that they did this past offseason, and just you can change the dynamic of that room, Ben Johnson said, with a few players. But he did also acknowledge it does take time for the O-line to get that cohesiveness that you need to have with a unit. We always hear that when we're talking about offensive line play. It's a unit and not just one individual. But, you do change some guys in there. It does change like he said, the dynamic. And he also said he's not looking to change 5 starters. That wasn't the case. He referenced back to his introductory press conference where they said they need to get better output essentially from that O-line. It doesn't mean 5 new starters. There are guys clearly on that line right now that Ben Johnson feels are going to be a part of the O-line moving forward, but there's no doubt going to be some acquisitions made to the O-line. You can say the same about the D-line, but you need to have that unit playing at a respectable level this upcoming season to run the offense that Ben Johnson wants to run with Caleb Williams. All right, guys, that's basically what I have for day one here. Just hearing from Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles here at the Indiana Convention Center, and we'll hear plenty more about potential prospects, and I'm sure I'll run into whoever out here in Indiana, just as we're trying to gather information about this coaching staff, the Bears in general. But appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate Windy City Sports Cards for sponsoring this video, and really just helping me get down to Indiana to cover the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine. Make sure, and I didn't even say this at the top of the video, make sure you like and subscribe at this YouTube channel. Helps grow the channel. And make sure you send it to a friend who isn't subscribed. Leave a comment as well, and make sure to keep pushing out content for the rest of the week. I'll see you guys tomorrow.